Hi, everybody. This is Josh Becerra from Agurian. Today is episode 12 of Augers on the Town. I'm here with John Lair. Thanks for being here, John.
Thanks for having me, Josh.
Yeah. So, John, you're a senior marketing leader, been in consumer products, CPG, food and beverage for many, many years, and all the big companies, Land O'Lakes, Kemp's, Schwann's, most recently Crystal Farms and Michael's Foods, as director of innovations and then senior director of marketing. So I can't wait to tap your brain for some of these cool insights that you must have learned in your time there.
I'm happy to share a few.
Yeah. So the fun thing I think about your background is that you do get to work in food and products, things that some of us might even relate to. We see the stuff that you've probably worked on this grocery store shelves. So why don't you tell us a little bit about like a product launch story or something that so that we get a little insight into what it's like being a senior marketing leader in these food and beverage companies.
Yeah, sure thing. Every company has its own culture, so how you launch products, really can differ from company to company. But I've experienced successes and some failures in launching innovative products. And I think probably the most interesting stories are the ones that teach the best, and the ones that usually come from the failures. And like all of us marketers, we had failures and successes. So I'll share an example of one of those. Invariably what I can say is, with failures, it's that age-old cliche. It really holds true that success is, 25% strategy and 75% execution.
Right on.
And it's really the biggest lesson, I have to share in the story here.
Okay.
What I'll say is, lots of marketers can create good, if not great, front-end strategies. Really understanding consumer wants, identifying product gaps, product development, market sizing, product design, branding, all that stuff. We all bring, really rich, varied experiences to the table, but where success really starts to break down, at least in my experience, and I think many others, is really during execution. So, a good example that I have of a story here is I was in a business where we had a huge opportunity to offer consumers more, call it cheese snack options. These are like individually wrapped string cheese, Baby Bells, people are pretty familiar with.
Love the Baby Bells.
Yeah, that category is in a really strong growth curve, riding the consumer demand for all things snacking, all things protein. Cheese offers a lot of protein, and really all things natural. So, structurally, strategy-wise, everything looks great. But our strategy was really to up the game in introducing a new product in that segment. And the idea was to tap into one of the more powerful trends at the time, which was intense flavor. So I took a page out of what Blue Diamond Almonds was doing at the time. They had just launched their intense flavors, really shaking up that category of almonds. And basically, we're going to take this intense flavor and put it onto kind of cheese nuggets, if you will.
Got it.
But beyond that, we went into really cool product design. These are going to be handheld, easy tear open options. You could call it poppable, so you could eat these on the fly. Brand design, we had a great bold name, which was right on target. And so the product development was perfect.
At this point, I think like everybody is imagining whatever their favorite little poppable cheese snack is. Yeah,
these were perfect. Right on target. In pre-launch testing, consumers loved it.
Yeah.
Then we launched.
You said this was a failure story, right?
I know I know. Well, this is execution, right? In the front end, everything's going great. So we get great acceptance from new big accounts like Safeway. So we're going to build out brand new distribution out west. We get full coverage in our existing markets, which is the upper Midwest. The product hits initial velocity targets, but never ramps up to the numbers we expected. So the question is, what goes wrong? And fundamentally, there's a structural issue. There's a disconnect between marketing and sales. At the root of it, really basic stuff, poor communication. We weren't fully collaborative in our partnership between marketing and sales. In new accounts, we didn't hold firm. We had a strategy that said, hey, launch this new product into brand new accounts and then build out the distribution of a much broader line, which is really needed for staying power at grocery
Yeah.
stores. You just can't have one or two items. You need more linear footage, as we would call it in the industry.
Okay.
In existing accounts, we didn't get the promotional support. Stuff that you would see at a retailer to get a percent off or some money off to really get the product moving at shelf. So the lesson at the end of the day, if I had to do it all over again, sales would be in the development meetings. We'd have a clear trade promotional strategy. We would get senior level sign off from all the sales VPs. We'd test different promotional levels, and lots of other things. But in short, we would have much better execution.
Yeah, that's amazing. We've done a ton of videos on like sales and marketing, and when they're working well together, it can be awesome. But when there's disconnects, like in our business, digital marketing, right? You'll have salespeople say those leads that are coming in off the website are horrible, and then there's marketing people are saying you're not putting the leads into the CRM appropriately, so we can't track them, right? So it's interesting to hear you talk about how like even sales and marketing disconnect when it comes to CPG can really cause problems, right? Amazing. Yeah. So one of the things that I was listening to as you were talking about like all this like market research that gets done and all these kind of focus groups that might occur where people are saying, yeah, we love this or whatever. There's kind of an interesting trend that you and I talked about previous to recording this, which is like the micro brands that are starting to pop up in CPG, right? And it's interesting how I'm sure the big brands have these very big processes of kind of gating whether an idea actually gets to market or not. And micro brands are like a little bit more nimble, and they're just like running at ideas. So what do we've talked about this, but tell us about your thoughts on like the micro brands and CPG, the trends and things, and why is this working now, where in the past it was really only big brands that had shelf space?
Yeah, happy to. I have a real strong perspective on it. As you've mentioned, we're experiencing, call it a tsunami of small brand success. And it feels like something's changed. Like never before have we seen this, in our lifetime. In laundry cleaners, right? In the day, you'd say no one's ever going to displace Tide.
Right.
Beverages, beer, coffee, and obviously coffee's gone through a change over the last 20 years already. But it's going beyond what we know, even from 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, beer is like huge. Like microbrew is just like the only way to go now.
And you can ask, is technology leveling the playing field between, the real big guys, the real big CPG manufacturers and small entrepreneurs? Could it be lower barriers of entry when you produce products to even things like communication? Is digital advertising leveling the playing field? Because it's much more approachable. It's much more cost effective for, small players, small people to get into, or maybe it's the structure of, this new structure of shopping, of DTC or direct to consumer, right? Decades ago, this was Amway and Schwann's Home Services and local milk delivery and Mary Kay and Avon, right? Right. Obviously, that whole model has changed completely, or maybe it's cultural, maybe it's real innovation. And what I mean by that, I mean by corporate culture. So where real innovation gets led by the small guys who literally have nothing to lose and everything to lose.
Sure.
And that's not a unique story. That's not a new story. That's been the story of innovation for, since time began.
Yeah.
But maybe culturally things are, in a little different place where, the big guys just have a lower propensity of risk at this point. There's lots of studies that talk about some of that stuff in terms of even how, the tenure of people in C-suites at big companies, it's very, very short.
Yeah.
So if your runway is short and you're in the C-suite, what's your appetite to for risk and innovation?
Yeah.
So in some context here, I love the history of business, mid 1800s after the Civil War, to the turn of the century, post World War II area. And the exponential tech curve, all that stuff, I just really love. And what I'd say is what we're experiencing with micro brands today is is not new.
Yeah.
So you look at beers in the late 1800s, cars in the late 1800s. A lot of people don't know there were dozens of car companies,
Right.
hundreds of beer companies, airlines, right? Airlines start out, you think, oh, it's just a few players. There were tons of airline companies.
Huh.
A little more near and dear to me, dairy brands, just hundreds of dairy brands, to things that even outside of food. Think of beds, kind of where the bedding industry, mattresses, how it started. Lots of different companies. It all consolidates and into a few, and then it blows up again. So my examples go on and on in terms of industries and kind of how things kind of change.
So it's kind of you're thinking it's like kind of cyclical, and we're in the uptick or down curve or whatever you want to call it of where micro brands are at play.
That's exactly it, right?
Yeah.
Industry they all start as cottage industries, right? It's a new technology. Someone's kind of putting their head out there, like with auto, cars in the day.
Yeah.
They're serving local markets. Dairy brands is a good example. They have to be dairy brands in the day had to be very close to the market because there wasn't pasteurization or it wasn't that great in the day. And then there's all this local appeal at that, but then there's some factors that cause a convergence of these industries. It's usually scale economies, a new technology like pasteurization, like I just mentioned. There's numerous factors, but one I think that extends across all categories today, one that is a little bit different than I think we've ever seen in history before is it's all around consumers' need or wants for things being more personalized to them.
Right.
I really think this is probably the single biggest driver of micro brands in this era today is this idea of I want things more personalized to me.
Yeah.
And you can look at all these industries and say that there's a spectrum of personalization, all the way from things just for you, products that are out there they're tailored just for a particular person's need.
Mm-hmm.
But then you can take that all the way to, I'll use bedding as an example, right? Where you can sleep on your side of the bed and your spouse can sleep on the other, and you can have your own number. Right? Yeah, that's personal.
Temperature, number, all kinds of stuff.
So I think that is one of the things that's really different from what we would have seen 100 years ago or 50 years ago, as you mentioned, the cycle of big brands and this explosion of small brands and how it goes over, how it continues.
Yeah.
But I think the different factor here again is around personalization. And so by kind of definition, there's more brands getting at this need that consumers have for all things more personalized.
Yeah. So let's take that conceptually around personalization and let's apply it to kind of the marketing industry, the agency industry in which, Agurian plays, of course. And there's a plethora of agencies out there, right? And the brands or the companies that are looking for agency services have needs, and those needs are a little bit different for every single company. So can you talk a little bit about your ideas about or your experiences working with agencies as a senior marketing leader in these CPG companies, and just your thoughts generally on the diversification of agencies and what we're experiencing today?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it really follows this idea of how industries change and these cycles in industries. And it's not just manufacturing, it's agencies, as from my perspective as well. Something happens on the agency side, a tech change or a consumer need or more of a customer need.
Yep.
And I see it as workers at maybe big agencies realize, they're a big company, they just can't respond as fast. So
right.
there's innovators there in your industry and entrepreneurs, and they emerge and say, I can do that.
Right.
And they leave their big agency and they serve a niche. So this whole world of boutique agencies blossoms, and eventually I think the big guys probably take a back seat. They let the market develop because they can't respond as fast because there's again cultural issues or whatever it is. And eventually again, there's a consolidation that happens. And I've seen this in my, tenure in marketing, where, the big agencies will start to consolidate and acquire some of these boutique firms and add them to their portfolio. So I guess the problem is that, first of all, it's not just agencies. Again, this happens in every industry, but in that acquisition, the culture changes. The drive might change. What's made that boutique firm a great pioneer, that gets lost. And people in the bigger companies may start to rest on their laurels. That's just, again, that's industry agnostic.
Sure, for sure.
And then, a good example here would be, when the world of all things kind of website design and creation started, how many years ago? How many new agencies popped up overnight, serving that need? And at the time, the big agencies would say, I remember I was part of this, they would say, yeah, we can do that. And the billing for a new website would be, 200,000, something astronomical in the day.
Yeah.
For services that you don't see today. I'm talking about at the advent of all things,
Sure.
kind of website. And then there's other folks, smaller boutique firms coming out doing it much quicker for literally 20 or 30,000, right?
Right.
So just this huge kind of disparity between big and small and abilities and costing. So for right now, I guess I'm just observing how agencies evolve in this next trend. This boom in digital communication services, things that is right in your wheelhouse. Really specialized, highly technical services. What's going to happen, on that side of it.
Yeah.
Simply summed up, and I guess my perspective is that it comes right from StrengthsFinder, which I'm a huge advocate of, and it's really do what you do best.
Yeah.
Because when you get too big, you start to lose focus, and you start missing out on what your true strength is.
Sure. Yeah, I love that. It's somewhat validating because, the conversations that we have at Agurian are all about really sticking to what our core competencies are and not trying to be everything to everyone. And I do find that there are agencies out there that have all the services, and they probably got their start being experts in one of those services, and then they grew into the others. And so we are trying to kind of contain our enthusiasm for just offering everything and saying yes to everyone, because I do think that when you can keep your focus on doing what you do best is the right way to do it. So,
and you're in the perfect space right now in terms of how needs are evolving from a customer standpoint.
Yeah.
So I love the approach. I really do.
Awesome. Well, thanks. Well, this has been super fun. I thank you so much, John, for all your kind of thoughts on business, both historically and current events. And so we're going to sign off for this episode of Augers on the Town, but really appreciate you, man.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yep.